I know you came for some secret to the pyramids, and you've gotten 2 dick jokes so far. We're not done yet. I do use psychedelics fairly often with the intention of expanding my consciousness toward creativity, my creative abilities.
So consciousness can only expand to the volume of your belief cage, your own cage of your own beliefs of what you can and cannot do.
I think I've gotten to the point now where I can't read a news headline without questioning it.
And you have to start asking yourself the question, was this a self-inflicted, pandemic on humanity from our own governments?
Yeah.
Do we need overlords anymore?
Kind of playful mockery of like spirituality and everything is mostly making fun of myself. Anyways, you asked if I've gotten blowback yet. Not yet, but I'm hoping this podcast helps.
Brent Pella.
What's
Oh
up,
my
brother?
gosh, I'm so excited to meet you finally.
Same, man.
I've been watching your stuff forever, it seems like, and I didn't really know that much about you until I saw you on a podcast I think I saw you on a couple of podcasts. One was with Danica, I think. Would you ever do one with Danica Patrick?
I haven't done
she's
Danica's
the one,
yet.
What it was is Danica is the one who told me about you.
Oh, cool.
So
yeah,
Danica was like, you got to see this Brent Pella.
Awesome.
I was like, oh, yeah. And then I saw you on another podcast. Maybe it was Aubrey.
Yeah, I did
Aubrey,
all
that's who it was.
recently.
Aubrey.
Yeah.
So I love your content. Tell me about your story and the inspiration behind all of this. I think it's so hilarious.
Cool.
And I think it's one of the things we need to do more in the world is laugh at ourselves, particularly as we're going through this whole spiritual journey type of thing. Because it is kind of comical. It's hilarious.
It's hilarious. And thank you for having me. I appreciate I feel smarter just being in your presence. I'm sure I have a lot of teachers that are going to check this out and be like, I never knew he'd get this far. But no, it's cool. The kind of playful mockery of like spirituality and everything is mostly making fun of myself. I grew up pretty spiritual. My mom was kind of a hippie chick. She had me young. She brought me to Grateful Dead shows, and I always kind of had a sense of spirituality. And then rediscovering it in my 20s, right after college, kind of sent me down a new trajectory of self-fulfillment through finding spirituality and questioning like esoteric things about myself and my place in the universe, and having the fun little existential breakdown on a Thursday that we all probably go through. But it's fun. It's been a cool way of learning about myself has been through producing the type of content that I make. Because first and foremost, it's to figure out who I am as an artist, and then that kind of informs who I am as a person. So
how did you pick this genre that is so unique that like nobody else was really doing? Or maybe I could see lots of people will start to do it on the fringes, but I think you're the first person who kind of dove in and said, okay, I'm going to take this spiritual genre and take the Mickey out of it. As they say in Australia.
It's I've always loved the way people phrase creating art as write what you know, or be a reflection of the world that you experience, right? And so over the years, and this is the artist's journey, I think, too, you spend your entire life trying to figure out what your voice is and what your perspective is on the world. And the greats have it figured out, I'm still very much on that path of trying to figure it out, and I will be for a while. And over the past, maybe since like 2020, during COVID was kind of when I hit my first little peak and gained some inertia as far as like following goes and views. And I started to feel like I was becoming familiar with the style of comedy that I was creating, rather than just throwing out a bunch of different things and seeing what stuck. I used to do like a celebrity impression, followed by a comedy like bro sketch, followed by some super sharp political piece, and it was kind of all over the map. And then over the past 4 years, I've started to fine tune based on what I find most interesting. And so that alone has helped me kind of narrow my focus toward a few specific areas to work within, one of which is spirituality, one of which is politics, but my style of taking on politics, which I'm still trying to figure out, but I think I have a pretty specific approach. And that in turn has helped me figure out how spiritual I really am, or what aspects of the spiritual path or the conscious community that I feel alignment within and what I want to learn more about. And I think it's that genuine curiosity that's reflected in a lot of the content I do, which has attracted a lot of folks, thankfully, and I'm super grateful for it. So trying to keep that growing. You know, it's attracted you. And
it definitely attracted me. Because most people, I'm not known for my humor. Even though I think I'm quite funny.
I think you're hilarious. I walked into your office and it was exactly like the office I thought you were going to have.
Oh, really? So it was like cliche, totally cliche.
Not in a bad way, in a good way. I was like, oh, wow, there's a flower of, oh, wow, here's another flower of life. Oh, look at that. It's a flower of life. And I felt like at every wall, I just didn't know which flower of life you were going to emerge out of.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, sorry, I was just on a call in the 11th dimension. Ready to podcast?
That's right.
But
plus,
cool.
there's a Vitruvian man on the wall out there too. You know, it's like a giant one.
Yeah, that you just stand in.
You just
come
stand in,
through.
right?
Yeah.
You can just channel it.
It's a portal.
It's a portal.
Yeah,
it's definitely a portal. This office is full of portals for sure. So something isn't right. The ease of modern digital communication comes with costs. What are these colossal technology companies doing with our words, with our energy, and with our very beings? Can you imagine an event horizon where they use against us what we unknowingly gave? Orion emerges as an end-to-end quantum secure messenger that places the freedom of expression back where it belongs, with the people. More than a platform, it's a movement. A movement to reclaim your voice and freedom. A movement of people with profound ideas and a deep desire to help the human race. Let's get back to communicating meaningfully in our lives. It's time to rise above the surveillance, the shadow bans, and the censorship. It's time to free our voices. In a time when free speech and assembly are absolutely necessary, Orion stands tall, ensuring that you can free your voice. What was it about the spiritual community, I guess, that first got you kind of interested from the perspective of let's make fun of how, it's like, let's be all about non-judgment, but then be judgy as hell.
Yeah.
Right? It's like hilarious dichotomies like that show up, and we're not even realizing that we're doing it. Mm-hmm. But it's like I'm enlightened and I'm all about, this, that, or the other. And all of a sudden it's like, it reminds me, I went to Tibet. Not Tibet. I was in Dharamsala. I went to go visit the Dalai Lama in 2019. And while I was there, I noticed that the Tibetan monks that were there, some of them wore like new clothing, like, that burgundy clothing with like the yellow shirt and all that stuff.
Oh, sure.
And then some of them the older guys were wearing more new stuff and the younger guys were wearing more tattered and old stuff. And so I asked one of the lamas that was with us, and I said, so why does some people get new clothes and some people get really tattered clothes? And they said, oh, this is another attachment. And I'm like, oh, another attachment. And he said, yes, as a monk, you decide that you want to look like Jesus type of thing, where it's like you don't think anything of the world, you're not attached to the world, so you're going to wear the worst shoes, you're going to wear the worst clothes, everything. So the new monks buy the most tattered clothes.
Whoa.
So that they can
to
play
show
the part.
That. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, isn't that kind of the opposite of what it's supposed to be type of thing? And he's like, yes, this is the problem.
Yes, that's the issue.
That's the issue. And I remember thinking, I'm like, wait a minute. So they're all about non-attachment. So they become attached to non-attachment.
Uh-huh. Whoa, that's a trip.
It's like the same thing with people that claim to be very, very tolerant.
Yeah.
They can become so tolerant that they become intolerant of intolerance.
Yes, or the people who claim to have no ego.
Yes.
And so they are now holier than you because they have no ego.
Yes, and so that's the funniest part of life, because it's like you can't see yourself doing it. It's like an eye can't see itself without the aid of a mirror. A knife can't cut itself, or a fire can't burn itself. It's the same kind of a concept. And so, actually humility and its sympathetic resonance will perceive humility. true humility, and arrogance will perceive arrogance, and ego will perceive ego. So it's such a funny dichotomy. And so when did you start thinking, okay, I'm just going to make fun of this because it's so good?
It happened. It's still happening. I mean, I never really had like an aha moment, but there have been a couple of moments that have registered in my brain as like ironies, specifically to answer your question within the spiritual space, because I don't only do like spiritual comedy, but it is like a big part of my whole universe and approach.
I've seen a few of your political things as well.
Yeah, and then there's a bunch of alien stuff too, and there's all kinds of fun things. But the spiritual stuff in particular,
alien stuff, you could say might actually be related to spiritual stuff too.
Yeah, I think so, and it kind of is because it's all driven from
perception,
some existential questions that I have. So myself and a good friend of mine, Nikki Howard, who's in a lot of my videos and vice versa, we made a video that we shot at a music festival as these two festival people claiming to have no ego.
Yeah. So you guys must have been to this Sacred Portal Alliance festival out in the Mojave Desert.
Yeah. So you guys know, like at a mainstream festival, people are out there with like all this ego. But once you've been to enough transformational festivals, and we've been to probably more than anybody else.
We've been to every festival.
You just don't have an ego anymore. Like we have no ego.
No ego.
We've been to so many festivals.
All of them.
That we've just been able to delete our ego.
What even is ego?
And so they were above and beyond. And that was inspired by me experiencing these small gatherings and like workshop environments where there was a leader or somebody facilitating the event or the small gathering, speaking from this pedestal. It just felt like a pedestal, and I feel like I have a good gauge of when somebody's speaking from their heart or from a pedestal, right? And this person was speaking from a pedestal made of cacao and, godly wisdom. And it struck me that here's this person telling us about all the traps of ego, and it just felt ironic that they were dressed in all this regal, like flowy clothes and gold and like makeup, and it's all good. That self-expression is beautiful, but it just felt ironic in the moment. And anytime I see those little ironies, whether it's in politics or sports or spirituality, something in me, I just have an urge to reflect it, and I think that comes from, I don't know, it can be drawn all the way back to the archetype of like the court jester, right? Just being a reflection of the absurdity that you see around you. And I've also been reading a lot more about the Heyoka. Do you know the Heyoka?
No, tell me about
that. The Heyoka is a position, I'm still learning, so I won't get this perfect, but it's a position within the Lakota tribe.
Okay.
It's what they call the sacred clown. So this was the person who, when it was really, really hot outside, would shiver and act freezing and make jokes about being so cold to reduce people's stress and anxieties about the super hot weather. That's just one micro example. But they would reflect the absurdity of what was happening around them with the intention of kind of loosening people up,
like neutralizing
in a general sense. Yeah. And there's much more, and it goes way deeper than that. I'm not on a pedestal to talk to you about the Heyoka, but I've been learning about that a bit more, and that's been kind of informing a lot of what I do, especially in recent years. Because there's a lot of absurdities out there, There's a lot of dumb. There's more dumb today, arguably, than ever before. So
it is kind of amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to judge it so much that I just start recreating it in my field, right? Which is dumb everywhere. But but I do laugh because the way we've taken nomenclature of things and the meaning of words, everything has changed so much. It's like when I was growing up, my parents would speak so negatively about, drugs, sex, and rock and roll. Right. That was the whole thing.
Yeah.
But then in today's world, drugs, sex, and rock and roll became plant medicine and ceremony. Right. Sex is divine union. And rock and roll is like a festival.
Yeah.
So it's just a change in perception, change of the wording and the nomenclature a bit. And all of a sudden, the intentionality makes it all totally a different experience.
Yep.
And so that has its own comedy. right? There's
Yeah.
truth to it. There's definitely truth to it. I'm not saying that, changing your perception doesn't change your world. In fact, I am saying you're changing your perception, and the words you use to describe your world does have the power to change your world.
Yeah.
But there is something funny that it was like in front of us all along. And so everyone's like, wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when did the script get flipped,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I grew up thinking, the government was the good guys. Like seriously.
Yeah.
Even though I grew up relatively on the more conservative side, and people like Ronald Reagan would say things like, the worst words or the worst sentence you'll ever hear is, "I'm from the government, I'm here to help."
Right.
It doesn't happen. But I think, it's so comical to see how people are going through their spirituality changes and everything, and how we all get sort of detoured as well on all these crazy things. Like, okay, whether it's like going really, really crazy on a diet. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with going on a diet. I've done it myself. During my spiritual awakening, one day I woke up and I was like, meat is revolting to me. And so I went for almost 3 years, no meat.
Wow.
At all. Like cold turkey from one day to the next. And then I started noticing that, I wasn't keeping up on all the supplements I had to take in order to kind of keep my muscle mass and everything. And I started feeling it really break down. But I know that it played a role for me. And I did the same thing recently where coming up to the eclipse, I was like, I'm not going to eat for 9 days. So I went on a 9-day fast. Water fast.
Leading up to the eclipse? Whoa.
9-day water fast. And then I came back from Brazil and I did another week-long fast. So I was, in 1 month, I didn't eat for, 20 days.
A 9-day water fast leading up to the eclipse.
I didn't eat for 16 days, yeah.
The moon cast a shadow. You were so skinny, you did not have a shadow.
Not quite that skinny because, I had a little extra that I probably didn't need. So I was able to eat myself, But, I mean, I definitely have gone through these changes. But looking at it from the outside, I'm sure all my friends are like, what a freaking nutcase.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely fodder for being made fun of.
Yeah, and it's fun. My thing with poking fun at spirituality, and I've gotten questions like this before, are you ever conscious of how somebody's path could be so personal and important to them that maybe it's off, maybe the practice that they're doing should be like off limits, or like poking fun at this part of the space should be like off limits, right? I'm of the mind that nothing is off limits ever, no matter what the topic is, as long as the intention is good, as long as the intention is to derive laughter, not like for shock value, or not to offend, or not to just feed your own ego by getting a response of some sort. And some people do that. Some people will joke about something super dark just because they love the thrill or the rush of getting whoa, it's not really me. That's not me. So I'll give you another specific example to kind of supplement that answer. I did this video a few months ago about intention sharing, like a circle of people sharing intentions before drinking their cacao, because I've been in way too many cacao intention sharing ceremonies, and I don't have any more. I don't know what other intention I could share. I've shared all my intentions, all of them. I've shared all the next intention that I'm going to share at a cacao ceremony is going to be, I intend to have a good night's sleep tonight, because I don't know what else to share. But it's a beautiful space, and I look forward to being in many more. But we were in a couple of them recently, and I could just see people in the room, like, kind of when you're in that setting and people are going around the room sharing their intention for the evening or for life, it's kind of a sacred setting. You want to give them the respect, you want to listen, you want to be open and allow them to share and just hold like neutral space so that they can express. I saw people muttering to themselves about like what their intention was going to be, like practicing, like rehearsing, or other people just not paying attention. And then I saw people around the room when it was time for them to share their intention. They went on and on and on. They went on for like 4 minutes. We don't need a short film about your intentions. Just share your intent. Like give us the log line of your intentions. We don't need the whole thing. And so to me, I interpreted that as them being a bit self-serving when sharing their intentions. And so that inspired the idea for this video where we go around the room in the video and try to out-intention one another.
Out-intention one another.
And so it's like when sharing
so my
intentions
intention's
turns
gotta be
competitive.
better. Right.
Yeah. Like, oh, you're going to release all that which does not serve you? Okay, well, I already did that, so I don't even need to release that anymore. My intention is going to be for you to really, like, figure it out. I intend for you to figure out, you know what I mean? And it's just tighten from there.
I think I've heard this type of stuff before. That's the funny thing about it. It's like, oh, that was real life.
Right, right. So it's always inspired by real life, but it comes from a place of love, and everybody's on their own journey. I'm still trying to figure my shit out. I don't have all the answers, but if something's funny, I'm gonna reflect it, and if something is a little bit absurd, maybe some folks who live in that space haven't had the absurdity of the space reflected back at them, so they might be holding their position in that circle, in that community, a little too loftily, right? So there's also that intention behind some of the stuff I do, is to say, hey, you get off the pedestal made of sage, okay? We're all human beings. We're all 3D creatures. We're all going to die. We all get diarrhea. We all have hiccups. We all don't know what is, we don't know what's what. We're all trying to figure it out. So part of the intention behind a lot of the spiritual comedy stuff that I do is to kind of pull people back into reality a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so funny. So what do you think are the most funny topics because I also see your role as raising awareness on these things that, that's exactly how I see it. That you're raising awareness to bring into our focus the aspects of ourselves that we probably aren't even aware of, and how funny it can be.
Yeah.
And how kind of ridiculous sometimes it can sound as well. So what are the things that you think that have really been impactful in how you've been able to raise awareness by shedding light on something that maybe people didn't know about?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the political kind of stuff that I've done has poked some holes through the fabric of reality for some people, especially people who look into conspiracies, and we both know the moon stuff. Like the moon is not real, and people who think the moon is real, I've kind of helped wake them up a little bit. Can you imagine if I was being serious? That'd be nuts. I think so. In 2020, when COVID hit and I couldn't go on the road anymore because I tour and I do stand up all over, and COVID took that away for a lot of people. I tripled down on video content then, and that really helped me solidify my kind of lane that I wanted to operate in. So I was doing a lot of research on all things current events, whether it was culture stuff or health and wellness trends and fads, or media, the way media communicates with us, the way we consume media, or politics, politicians, campaigns, things like that. And I think I've gotten to the point now where I can't read a news headline without questioning it. For better or worse, that's just kind of how I am now. And in a lot of ways, I think that immediate sense, that immediate hesitancy to trust has allowed for me to create content that tries to dissect what we're given as reality. An example of that is I did this other video recently where I'm playing a character who believes all the news headlines that say things like eating red meat means you're far right, or working out too much means you might be a fascist. Like the fascism wants you to be always in the gym because it's part of their toxic masculinity push to take over whatever. And so I read all those headlines and I started to feel like, okay, that's just absurd. So why don't I play the character who would believe all of this? And in doing that, in kind of finding ridiculousness of the world to navigate through and create content based around, I would hope that I've helped other people kind of see the absurdity of all that stuff.
Sure.
I didn't agree with the lockdowns. So I made a lot of comedy videos about the lockdowns and about California Governor Gavin Newsom, the greasiest man known to the world. He's got the Guinness World Record for the amount of hair gel that he can fit in his hair. And for that, I congratulate him. But some of the rules and the things that he did during COVID and after, and even up to now, I don't agree with, I don't like. And I just think logically are wrong. And that's my opinion. And so when I express my opinion that way, I've actually had people reach out to me saying, hey man, thank you so much for doing this. I didn't know this, blah, 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 this. You've inspired me to look more into this. And that's really cool. First and foremost, the intention is to get laughter. But if some folks are connecting with it, with the content and the messaging in a deeper way, it's super fulfilling, you know?
Now, have you ever had like a big blowback of something negative from something that you did?
Not big in a public sense. Like I've never had a protest outside of a show. I'm looking forward to that day, though. Would love that, man.
What would you do?
I'd probably shoot some videos in the I might put on a wig and a mustache.
I can totally see you doing that.
Yeah, and join the protest and just be like, yeah, I hate this guy. Brent sucks. His dick is way too big. It's bad. Yeah, he's terrible, right? Isn't it? I heard rumors that it's huge. Yeah, he's a bad guy. Sorry, listeners of the Robert Edward Grant podcast. I know you came for some secret to the pyramids, and you've gotten 2 dick jokes so far. We're not done yet. So why don't you turn that volume up?
Well, you know, it is actually, it all does relate back to the dick, right? You know that.
It does. It does.
Do you know how?
Please tell me.
So in the mythology story, in the Egyptian pantheon of Osiris, Osiris has an affair with his brother's wife. His brother's name is Set. This is where the name Satan comes from. And Set gets upset because his wife gets pregnant. Her name was Nephthys. And they end up having a child named Anubis. Well, Set's upset that his brother, Osiris, like the king of the gods type of thing, slept with his wife. So he decides to punish him in his own vigilante kind of a way. And he makes a casket and says, anyone who can lay in this casket and fits in this casket, this is beautiful, elaborate piece of, you know, artwork, will be able to own this casket, and they could take it for their death and burial, which is kind of like a weird story in the first place. But then, so Osiris lays down in it, and he gets up, and as soon as he no sooner gets up that his brother pushes him back in, slams the lid shut, nails it shut, and then tosses it in the river. And then finds the casket later on and opens it up and cuts him into 14 parts. The 14 parts are in the Vitruvian Man. So Vitruvian Man has a line that goes across the chest, one that goes across the shoulder, one that goes across the elbow, the torso, and the groin area, and the knees. Yeah, exactly. So it starts to add up to 14. And what's interesting about it is that when this happens, Isis is upset, and she decides to go back and look for all the parts of his body. All 14 parts have been cut apart. And she recruits the help of her sister, the one who had an affair with Vitruvian Man, and says, hey, please help me pull all the pieces together. So they're searching and searching, and the only piece they don't find is his penis. Now, the other name for the Great Pyramid is Bull Mountain. Bull is a reference to Osiris. It's literally the house of Osiris. So yes, there is a missing penis.
There's a missing penis.
Yes, and you gave us 2 today. You probably brought a whole bag with you.
Am I the Vitruvian Man? Incarnate?
Let your hair grow a little bit. Maybe
it could be.
Hey.
We have the same physique. We do have the same physique. Shirt off, like don't look at my face. Same physique. same size of everything.
But you've got the cool clothes. This is very Topanga look.
Thank you. Right yes. Here. Yeah. I'm dressed in my Austin best here.
This is. Oh, is it Austin that's?
No, actually, One Golden Thread is Venice. They're based out of Venice.
Yeah, they're in Venice. Right.
They're Venice.
Right.
But
I was just in Austin, so
cool.
I didn't see anyone else wearing that. You know, that's very much a Topanga type
Topanga
style. Although
is
Aubrey does wear that stuff too.
He does. Yeah, he got it from me. You're welcome, Aubrey. Aubrey got everything from me. Honestly. He got all of his esoteric knowledge from me. Okay. The Topanga is the original spot of the hippie. Or was it Laurel Canyon? Around
that area.
One of those places was the original, like before Haight-Ashbury, before anywhere else, it was there. Anyways, you asked if I've gotten blowback yet. Not yet, but I'm hoping this podcast helps. And I have gotten comments online. Somebody even commented on, I think, the Intention Circle video saying, something along the line. It was the exact type of person that I would make fun of. Like I almost felt like I was reading a joke comment that I had written myself. It was a trip. Somebody was saying like you shouldn't poke fun at this because it's going to reinforce the negative stigma of this space and da 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 da. Nah, I don't agree. I think you can poke fun at anything. You know, again, it's about the intention, and the intention of making that video was with love and to be a reflection of a space that I think has some absurdities from time to time, but in its essence is a beautiful, amazing place to operate, navigate, and experience. So, that's. But luckily, nothing super negative. Yeah, which is cool. But you never know. It's election year, so things are going to get weird.
So, okay, let's unpack that. So what's going to get weird in your view?
I'm hoping aliens show up. I really would like to see one. I know they're here. I know there's different.
I was actually invited to something that's going to be held in a very unique location. It's not in anywhere that's on the U.S. mainland, so I'll just narrow down the world for you that way. I'm not sure that I'm supposed to talk about it, but I was actually invited to go to an event at the end of this year that will be coinciding with a global communication.
Ooh, a global communication. What does that mean? Robert Edward Grant. What does global communication mean? Really? There's a date?
There is.
Is there more information you can share, or do we have to just guess now and wait?
Not unless you were invited.
Okay. All right.
Right. And by the looks of it, I don't think you were.
I don't think so.
Because you would have known.
Wouldn't be wearing this one golden thread outfit. You know, I'm such a wannabe nerd for all things space and science. And I know as much as is out there about aliens. I feel like I know like the different theories. And I even read this article. It was a write-up posted to Reddit. So it was just a post made by an anonymous user who claimed to have had worked in
so
a
it was on Reddit, though.
It was on Reddit, which is the most trustworthy news source
I was
in
going
the
to
world.
say, yeah. I mean, it's
especially when it's anonymous. That's how you know it's real.
And clean, too, usually.
Yes.
And very
super
sweet.
clean, very respectful.
Exactly.
Yeah. Minimal slurs. So this anonymous person posted to Reddit. So immediately I trusted everything he said. But it was really well written, really well written. It felt like I was reading a dissertation. And he was using all types of phrases I don't understand. And he was saying the summary of it was this person worked in a compartmentalized section of a government-funded research lab to study exobiospheric organisms. EBOs. So what that obviously they could have just said extraterrestrial beings, exobiospheric organisms. And what his job was to study the biological function of a recovered corpse. And then other compartments of the research team were going to study the metal. There was a metallurgy section. There was a what's it called? Motion, however the thing moved, I guess, section. So there were different sections. And he wrote about the intestines. He wrote about the skin. He wrote about the smell of the thing. He wrote about why the eyes look like this and the pupils look like that, and it's black because of this, and in very, very fine detail. And then I read the comments, and in the comment section, people were saying, "Hey, I've got, a 7-year doctorate degree, and if this guy's lying, he's one of the greatest science fiction writers of all time." Yeah. And then other people were piggybacking that. I know exactly everything he said makes complete sense. I can't tell you if it's true or not, but I can tell you that there is not one error or misstep in the way he described everything.
That's incredible.
And to have that type of knowledge, you would need to either have had experienced all that or have gone through all of the educational processes to understand what you're talking about, right? So even if it's fake, it's super entertaining. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, please do.
But, there's more of that type of thing coming out. more often and more frequently sightings and video and theories and reports and whistleblowers and all these things. And I feel like it's just building. I feel like it's I'm hoping it's building. I like to be an optimist and think that if we did have a global event where there was a global awareness of another life form of any kind, whether it's an amoeba on a moon, or
single cell,
or a being of some sort that's here. The optimist in me wants to think that would yield positive progress for humanity.
And what if they're already here?
I do think they're already here, but the lack of public knowledge, or the lack of public experience on a big scale, I think. We need that in order to really move the needle on like human progress. Because
what if I painted a different scenario for you?
Yeah.
What if our ability to perceive? I mean, I think of us as dimensionally limited avatars. Right, we're living out an experience that our higher self wanted us to experience. So, what if the only way that you could up level to higher states of awareness and consciousness is by going through this process of learning through duality, learning about, why it's important to make the right decisions, and then realizing ultimately that everything culminated in your life for a beautiful symphony that's a tapestry or a mosaic of everything that you were intending to learn for yourself, and you learn through opposites. So if you're here to learn unconditional love, then you'll experience conditional love, which is betrayal over and over again, until you no longer negatively judge betrayal. Once you've finally learned how to not negatively judge betrayal, then you've actually started to grasp the concept of what is unconditional love. What is unconditional love? And so as we think of it from that perspective, as dimensionally limited avatars, maybe as we raise our consciousness, we are able to now see and experience in the vibration of where those extraterrestrials actually are. So I said earlier, an eye of humility will perceive an eye of humility. A arrogant person will perceive an arrogant person. Arrogance perceives arrogance. Piousness perceives piousness. And humbleness perceives humbleness. So as we move into higher states of awareness, we start to resonate at that frequency. And if we're in the fifth or sixth dimensions, and that's where the extra and intraterrestrials are, then we're just now finally like the bird who can now see colors with more specificity than what we can, because they have this extra larger segment of the non-visible spectrum that they can actually perceive and see, where they would see a basic black bird that we might see with all kinds of iridescence within it that makes it look like a rainbow bird in a way. That is because their retinal receptors are resonating to the frequency of the thing and the color they want to see. What if extraterrestrials are just like that for us?
So how would we as humans get to those upper dimensions?
You have to raise consciousness. You have to realize that you're here in a game of Maya, which is a simulation game, to learn how to expand yourself through heartbreak, through difficulty, through challenge, through suffering, all these things. Then finally, you think that the whole reason for being here on Earth is to escape Earth. But actually, the reason why we're here is to learn how to fall in love with it just as it is. That's the only way to transcend it.
Okay, I need to get to the fifth and sixth dimension ASAP.
That's when you can start making the world around you a paradise. So no, it wouldn't be a mass experience for everybody that easily. The only time that it could even happen is if a large enough percentage of humanity was actually transiting into that fifth dimensional and sixth dimensional experience.
So like if everybody did DMT at the exact same time.
Or if everyone had like global orgasm.
Men. Yeah. Do you want me to start the Facebook event, or do you want to start it? I can send the calendar invite.
I know I was already thinking we're gonna call it Come Again. Or Come Together. Come Together.
Come together. Come together.
Yes.
Come together.
Come together.
The final coming.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
Jesus is invited too.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
He can come again.
You know what?
Sorry, everybody.
Sorry, everybody. Come together. Actually, that was Emily Fletcher's idea. She's so funny, and she's like, "Oh, I want to do this whole sacred thing and have everybody, have an orgasm together in a big stadium." And I'm like, yeah,
that's
we can call
wild.
it Come Together.
That would be cool. That would be nuts, literally and figuratively speaking. Wow, that'd be cool. I had an idea for a global event that I actually wanted to do. That's still in mind.
What is it?
It's called Shut the Fuck Up. Yeah, it's one day where at noon.
You got
for
my director
5
back
minutes,
here laughing.
For 5 minutes, everybody in the world shuts the fuck up. For 5 minutes.
It sounds
That's
pretty
it. 5
genius.
minutes. 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Everyone can do 5 minutes of shut
Everybody
the fuck
can
up.
do 5 minutes. Radio stations go silent. TVs go off. Phone calls, podcasts, pause. And for 5 minutes, the world is in silence. Because everybody shuts the fuck up. I think it would be a healing moment. I'd love if that was just like a once a year thing and we could all just shut the fuck up. And then immediately following that, everybody goes to a stadium and comes all over each other. I think that back to back could be what levels us all up into a talk about a dimensional transition.
And
you know?
then the extraterrestrials show up.
And then they might show up and be like, damn, all right, what do we have to do to be humans now?
That's
like
right.
you guys, there must be some interplay here.
Actually, you know what? For the extra dimensional entities that I've actually conversed with, they do like to think about what it's like to come back into the physical.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there are things that we can do here that are not the same as what they can do there. So the sensation of having a solid body, because the higher dimensional beings are more like what we would consider spirits,
Yeah.
right? They're not bound by time. They can travel in and out of time space. And so as a result of that, they're like, whoa, that'd be really cool to like get down and dirty, right? To come back into this.
Yeah.
I mean, look, they love to watch us. Like they're like watching TV. During COVID, I saw the funniest memes where it was like these aliens sitting around a couch. They got popcorn and everything out. And they're like, yo, have you seen the latest episode of Earth? So good, right?
It's nuts.
So,
Yeah.
It's nuts. There you go.
When you've had those experiences, have they been what has been the mechanism to put you into a state where you can have an experience like that? Has it been with any type of medicine or psychedelics? Has it been more meditative? What's been kind of your experience?
Actually, I've had all kinds. So I can't really say it's tied to one particular experience. I mean, I've had experiences where I've been at home and laying in bed and get a visitation, and I've had experiences where I've seen lights and gone outside and saw entities outside and even ships and everything. I've had experiences where they've spoken to me through telepathy as well, or very often the types of things and communications I get are direct downloads. Like moments of absolute clairsentience, where all of a sudden it's inexplicable that I'll understand some precept of physics or math or music or something that just pops right in my head.
Oh, cool. See, I've had many similar experiences to that, the last one that you just described creatively. Because I really like the theory that our consciousness is just there's an antenna-like transmission.
Yeah.
of consciousness.
I think of our brain like that. One way that Bashar, I did a podcast with recently, described it. It was actually Daryl Anka, but Daryl said that the way Bashar describes it is we have a higher self that is the conceiver. Our brain is the receiver, like a radio receiver.
Yeah.
And our conscious minds are the perceivers. So conceiver,
Cool.
receiver, perceiver.
Perceiver. Yeah, that's rad. And I'm fully on board with that. I think, a lot of my creative output is kind of fueled by the thought that I'm creating scenes from different dimensions of reality. It's just like a fun thought experiment that I have from time to time. Like the video you watched before.
On the quantum physics
Yeah,
thing.
three bros describing quantum physics to each other.
And trying to understand quantum entangled states and
Right.
wave particle duality with women.
With women, right.
Yes.
Because women and quantum physics are the two hardest things to understand on planet Earth. And so in that video, these three bros broke it down. And to me, like that video now is a snapshot of just three dudes living life in a different dimension. And why not? If there are multiple universes and multiple universe hypothesis is real, then a lot of these characters and things that I do, I've had like what you could call maybe a direct download of like, okay, character script, and it just flows straight from my brain through my fingertips into the keys of a computer, and then that flows into the camera through the editing system as I piece together the puzzle, and out pops a scene. And to me, a lot of the scenes that I make are just snapshots from other very real dimensions. And that's just a fun way of thinking about it to me. It's kind of like it's almost psychedelic in nature. Like I'm manifesting something from mind into reality, and showing like a screenshot or showing a snapshot of a scene from a different dimension.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, I mean, I think that probably the whole topic of like a global contact coming into play could be explained as to why not everybody sees it, right? Not everyone has these kinds of experiences, because as Leonardo da Vinci said, there are three types of people: people that can see, those that see, those who can see once shown, and those who simply don't see. Because if it's a higher dimension, it'd be like a bird that can see a spectrum of color that goes, much broader than our 400 nanometers to 720 nanometers or something. And it can actually see all the way up to 760 or 790, or they can see whole other colors that we would have never seen before. And probably before you ever took mushrooms, you probably started to notice when you did take mushrooms the first time that colors looked kind of different.
Yeah. Yep.
Like a whole different spectrum of color opens up to you. So that's when you start to see, because I think mushrooms don't give you an illusion, but they reveal the illusion you're living.
Right.
And so they kind of pull the curtain up.
Yeah.
So that means that the rest of our reality, that which we cannot see, that which we cannot experience, in fact, is really just us not yet perceiving the encryption that's there. It's all patterned.
Yeah.
So maybe extraterrestrials are just the next stage of human consciousness.
Mm-hmm. And to go to further extrapolate on the mushroom point you just made, even outside of color, just creativity. For me, things like mushrooms or LSD or other psychedelic substances,
your creativity really
can be used,
shoots up.
to reveal different ways of creative thinking. The same way they reveal a new color spectrum, the same way you do a little bit of LSD, you walk around the park, the greens are a different green. It's a different green. You look up at the sky, it's a different blue. It's more saturated, it's just different. And so I do use psychedelics fairly often with the intention of expanding my consciousness toward creativity, my creative abilities. And that's really informed a lot of the stuff that I do too, because it's helped me navigate concepts in a way that I might not have been able to without the extra little boost of, a microdose of psilocybin or a very, very tiny amount of LSD. My friend Laura Dawn does a lot of really cool work with psychedelics and creativity. And she introduced me to this quote by Arthur Kessler. Do you know who that is?
Heard of him.
He said, creativity is the breaking of habit by originality, right? And so your habitual thinking can be...
Creativity is the breaking of habit by originality.
Breaking of habit by originality.
I like that.
So that doesn't only have a tie to the creative arts. That's you can be creative. You can be a creative problem solver.
Yeah.
You can figure out a creative way to clean your house. As long as you're breaking the habitual way that you have kind of cemented in your brain of approaching that topic or problem or challenge. And so for me, psychedelics have offered a way of breaking my habitual ways of writing jokes, my habitual ways of coming up with funny ideas or content ideas, the habitual ways of creating a career even, right? And I'm constantly trying to figure out how to break these habitual patterns by injecting originality or expanding my creative awareness so that I have other ideas of approaching a topic. And that also has really helped on a personal level too, just with managing stress and anxiety, because in this entertainment field and many, many other fields, stress and anxiety can be a killer, can be like a real weight to your soul. And I've used psychedelics to break the habitual ways of trying to deal with stress and anxiety, to find new ways to navigate those low spaces so that I can get back to the highs.
Wow. Okay. So break this part down for me. So when you're trying to come up with a new thing, because I'm sure you've already done so many different areas in politics and aliens and extraterrestrials, interterrestrials, and in spirituality, which is kind of like your sweet spot. Probably psychedelics all wrapped in there.
Yeah, all those things
Probably a little
inform each
crypto,
other.
funny stuff
Sure.
too. I could see the kind of like the Venn diagram right now.
Cool.
Your ikigai, right? Your ikigai. So when you start to think about, okay, what are the new areas and topics I want to venture into, right? How do you do it? What's the process that you go through?
Yeah, so it used to be...
I mean, besides starting with psilocybin and
Right.
SNAS.
I first check my cabinet to see how many drugs I have left.
Okay.
And will these last?
Yes.
And if not, I
How
open
many
up
bars
Signal.
of chocolate do you still have? Right.
So it used to be anything that I thought was funny, I do. I make fun of, I make a joke, I make a video, I put it out. And that was like leading up till 2021-ish. Past couple of years, I've really tried to refine my focus to create content and talk about things that I'm genuinely interested in, and not make things just because I know they'll get a bunch of views and just because I know it's a topical, cultural, trending conversation as much as I used to. There's still things that I'll poke fun at because I'm a comedian and I love to make fun of anything, right? Like the two rappers right now that are having a big beef, Drake and Kendrick Lamar, they're dissing each other back and forth. That has nothing to do with spirituality, politics, aliens, or health and wellness, which is kind of like my space, right?
Okay.
But I'm kind of a hip hop fan, so I just released a video making fun of them. Whatever, that's beside the point. The process to your question is usually to try and not have too structured of a process, to be honest. If something catches my eye that seems silly and fun, I'll usually write it down in my notes on the phone. And then once I have a couple of notes with some concepts over the course of 2 or 3 days, I'll sit at my computer, I'll free write. And a lot of the free writing is bad, but if there's a couple of lines that are good, I'll take those as I reread and rework through them, and I'll take those. And I'm insane, so I'll put on a wig and I'll improvise in the mirror and I'll do weird character voices in my office. And I don't know what my neighbors think, but they must be fans because they haven't called the police in a long time. And so the process is just trying to first and foremost figure out what makes me laugh. Because if it makes me laugh, then I'll just hold on to the faith that it'll make other people laugh too. But yeah, the use of psychedelics in creativity, specifically for comedy, has been instrumental in me figuring out what I'm good at and what I like to do. And the intersection between just the psychedelic state of mind and comedy is so strong.
Really?
So the root of psychedelic, you know, the root word where it comes from, it's Greek. Psyche.
From psyche.
Is
Psyche's the
of the mind.
Yeah, of the mind.
Yeah.
It's also a mythological character.
Is it from where? From Greek.
It was a story of Psyche. Psyche was a beautiful woman who was supposedly so beautiful that the son of Aphrodite fell in love. So Eros fell in love with Psyche, and Psyche was from the famous story of Pandora's box. So basically, she ended up angering the mother. She did something she was not supposed to do. When Eros would come and visit her in the middle of the night, she was able to put a candle by his face to see his face, and she wasn't supposed to see his face ever. And also she'd kind of spoken of herself and let it be spoken of her that she was more beautiful than his mother Aphrodite. And so she gave Aphrodite ended up giving Psyche these impossible tasks, 3 impossible tasks: to find the golden fleece, right, to free the eagles in the tree. I don't remember exactly something with that, and then to get Pandora's box. Because of her obsession with beauty. Psyche had an extreme obsession with beauty. So there's an interesting aspect of that related to the mind.
Cool.
So we keep going though. So you're going through the etymology of psychedelic.
So psyche, meaning of the mind from Greek, and then delios or delio, meaning to manifest. So psychedelic literally translates a manifestation of the mind.
Wow, you just taught me something that I did not know, dude.
Did I teach Robert Edward Grant?
You
Dude,
did. You
crazy.
taught me something. I will have to check to see if it's correct.
Fact check it for sure.
But like you mentioned, that Delios, right, is to manifest.
Yeah.
And now I'm actually thinking that's the meaning behind the cube of Delos. The cube of Delos is the temple of Apollo.
Okay.
Temple of Apollo, and I've been getting stuff on Apollo all day today.
Oh man.
And also the Egyptian god Ra. Because I'll just go ahead and tell you, it's kind of a strange thing. So I kept getting people over the last few days saying, "Hey, you are Ra," and I'm like, "Okay, why do I keep getting all this Ra commentary?" And then someone wrote that there was a session QHHT, which is you've heard of Dolores Cannon, right? She taught this session on how to do all these types of QHHT. Past life regressions.
Yeah.
And so there was a recent past life regression that was done by, I think her name is Sarah Bresky, Cosme. And she basically was doing a session. And during the session, it was a recorded session, and it just went live on YouTube. During the session, the person that was doing the past life regression said, "And Robert Edward Grant is Ra." So now it's like showing up all over
everywhere.
my stuff, right?
You
and I'm like,
are Ra.
whoa. And of course, Ra is Apollo.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just the Greek pantheon versus the Egyptian pantheon. Yeah. And in the story of the Greek pantheon, the way the story goes is that back in the time of Plato lived around the 4th century BC, and they had a COVID sickness, right? So they had a plague. It wasn't exactly COVID. We don't know exactly what it was, but it was a plague that was killing a lot of people. So they didn't know what to do, and they decided to go to the Senate and ask the Senate. And Plato said, "Look, we need to go to the Oracle of Delphi and ask the Oracle of Delphi what to do." So Delphi is where the Temple of Apollo is, right? So Delphi, as it's also pronounced, and in the Temple of Apollo, there's a large cube, and so the Oracle of Delphi said, "Okay, this is really interesting now." So the Oracle of Delphi said, "You must double the volume of the cube that's the altar to Apollo." So the Greek mathematicians went crazy over this because they're like, how much do we have to increase the side length of the altar in order to double its volume exactly? So they were just getting used to the third power, right? To understand the third power. And so they never solved it, right? That was the thing. But they said, as soon as you can double the cube for the altar of Apollo, sun god Ra, then you will be able to expand beyond being sick. So you'll no longer be sick. So this has been a long-term promise, and this came to a head because basically that means how much do I have to increase this cube, right? This is called a hypercube here. But how much do I have to increase the side length of a cube to make it exactly double the volume? And
Is it not twice?
No, so the cube, whatever the volume is right now, no, it's not twice.
Okay.
No, because
that shows you my math.
if you took this and you doubled it, then you'd already have it be 4 times, right? So how could you double the volume?
So would you? That's a math question.
It's
Robert.
a math question. So here's how you solve it.
I thought we were doing Egyptian gods. Now he's got me doing times tables. All right.
Okay, well, there's no times table in this, but it's close. So what you'd have to do is you have to increase the side length
by a half.
By a little bit. It's not a half.
Okay.
It turns out to be 1.26.
1 plus 2 plus 6 is 9. 9 is a universal number. That's
very well
Nikola
done.
Tesla
Yes,
said.
yes. The 369.
369.
That's right. That's
Damn
right.
you
There's
fine. Baby
that's
girl,
right.
give it to
Damn
me
you
one
fine.
more time.
Exactly. I knew you were going to say that.
No.
So you increase it by 1.26, and then that gives the volume because 1.26 to the third power becomes 2.
Whoa.
Whoa.
On the spot?
On the spot.
Just straight 2?
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah. So
damn.
Doubles the volume. Actually, it comes out to be 1.25992, right? That's the actual value, but everyone rounds it to 1.26.
Yeah.
And so it turns out that showed up in Vitruvian Man, because on Da Vinci's very famous illustration in the upper right-hand corner, there's a page number, but it was never part of the book. So why is there a page number? And the page number that was in the upper right-hand corner was 126.
Okay, so okay.
I'm getting there. So stick with me for a moment.
Okay, I'm with you.
So you have to double the volume, and once you double your volume, it's a metaphor. Because what is the cage that actually keeps us locked in life? It's the cage of our belief systems. So consciousness can only expand to the volume of your belief cage, your own cage of your own beliefs of what you can and cannot do. The conditioning biases that you have, all the things that you believe, this is possible. Oh, I can't fly. That's outside of your cage, right? So you can only expand to the level of your belief. But as you taught so well in your little film on quantum entanglement, right, and on double slit and wave particle duality and all that stuff, is that there's belief plays a major role in this. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. What you're going to get in life is what you believe more than anything else. So the idea that you can double your volume means going to the next octave of experience. You'll be able to see and experience extra-dimensional perception. You'll be able to see and experience extra-dimensional beings and interdimensional beings. You're going to a whole nother level. You have a whole new DNA. So you've basically doubled the cube. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So Delos is manifestation. Delio means manifest, right? To manifest. And I believe now what you've just told me, the psychedelo, right? Delio is this notion of manifesting from the mind, which is belief. Manifesting from the mind, which is belief. So this idea, and look, it's 126.
Oh my God, it's 126. Crazy. Come on, Robert, did you just do that? Did your producer just put that on? Did you put that on the clock?
No.
Come on, dude. That's crazy. That's crazy.
I know. But that's welcome to my world.
But
this
that's
is how
what
my
happens.
world is always, always
dude,
like
hey,
this.
man, I'm
full
bored.
of synchronicities.
The amount of times I see 9 throughout my day and just like all the time.
Well, that is 9.
I know. It's
1 + 2 + 6 is 9.
That's wild.
So the point being,
that means we're vibrating at the right frequency.
We're vibrating at the right frequency.
We are.
So what you just taught me,
yes,
is that the belief is the catalyst to the manifestation, and it's actually built into the word. And
So-
Delos, the cube of Delos, is the cube. It wasn't just an altar to Apollo; it's the altar of manifestation. That was the metaphor behind it all along, and I never knew it. I just thought it was a pronoun. I thought it was
Nice.
I thought it was a name or something. right?
Yeah.
I didn't think of it as a verb of
descriptor.
action.
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Which
yeah.
is to manifest.
Yeah.
So that's kind of very profound.
Cool. So then what is your thought on the way somebody listening to this could like physically expand their belief
Beliefs.
system by 1.26, right? Or more so in order to reach a higher level of consciousness?
The first thing
Yeah.
is just to become aware that it's even available to you.
Cool.
So we live in a mental universe, I believe. It's like Hermetic wisdom, principle number 1, right? The all is mind. The universe is mental. When you understand we're in a mental universe, then the only things that are real obstacles in this life are the things you persistently believe. So if you can start to get rid of the negative narratives of the I can't do, or I'm limited because I'm a victim, or all this negative self-talk that everybody does, and quite frankly, it's very funny sometimes, right? We can all make my brother is like, he reminds me of like Larry David sometimes. He's like so like the victim on everything. And I'm like, it's hilarious. Like we could sit around and joke about it and everything, but man, that's a tough life to live.
Yeah.
It's funny,
Yeah.
but it's not really the best way to be able to double your cube. And doubling your cube just means going to the next octave of experience.
Yeah.
So that's a deep principle. I did not expect that to happen because
Cool.
I've been thinking about this today, and I've been getting all this stuff on Apollo this morning and all this stuff on Ra. And then you basically just taught me something on psychedelia, that's a wow.
I'm here to teach, Robert. I'm here to inform.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You know, maybe I should get out of comedy and just
You know what?
go
You
on
could be
tour
a
with
guru.
Randall Carlson. Yeah.
Do you know what guru means?
I don't. What is the etymology of guru?
Gu is the word for darkness, and ru is the word for light in Sanskrit.
Really?
From darkness, light.
Wow. That's cool. I didn't know that.
So being a guru doesn't actually mean that you're only light.
Right.
It's like you're not just a light worker. You're also a shadow worker. You're
Right.
integrated.
You're a balancing act.
You're a
You keep
balancing
balance.
act.
Yes.
And that
yes.
is the
yes.
key aspect of true spiritual progression. Realizing you finally choose love over choosing to be right.
Now, what would the difference be between a guru and a shaman then? Shaman is much more, in my experience, to help facilitate some type of healing or transitional evolution from one state of being to another, or to rid yourself of something that you're holding, right?
Yeah.
Whereas guru has commonly been associated with like a spiritual leader or a group leader, and maybe somebody who's not hyper-focused on individual healing or just healing in general. Do you know the
Yeah,
root of
I would
shaman?
say, I mean, I was made, along with Nassim Haramein, a good friend of mine, we were both made Toltec shaman in 2019 in Teotihuacan, right by the pyramid, in a place called the Heart of the Feathered Serpent. And they gave us our rights and everything and told us what our responsibilities were. But to me, I kind of tend to agree with you. I think it's more related to a healing aspect, right? Whereas gurus don't necessarily make tangible the healing aspect. They're not necessarily administering the medicine to you.
Right.
Their existence might actually just be an example of what
Right.
can be achieved.
Right.
So in that by itself, it starts to become medicinal in a way for you. But it's about, no one ever really gets taught. They're just remembering the things that they learn. So someone becomes a catalyst for that remembrance. So I would think that the shaman is probably more grounded to a certain extent, and probably more in the mindset of, how am I going to bring the medicine and use all the things in this, this state of awareness and dimension to bring to bear, to bring a higher consciousness result for this person. So it's very targeted. Whereas a guru might just walk in a room and with their presence actually have a big impact on all the people there
Yeah.
and never even meet the person.
Right. Right.
So the shaman to me is more personable. It's like more one-on-one, individualistic. And the guru just
and they're more a
becomes
conveyor or a conduit of healing in some type of practice.
I think a guru in this context is more like an avatar state, which I think there's probably a lot of false ones too. I don't know.
Oh,
but
for sure. Yeah.
but
yeah. Which
I-
is also something real fun to make fun of, is
Oh,
people
yeah,
who hold
totally.
themselves into high
Totally.
regard as guru.
That's right. And usually when there's a guru, there's usually an orgasm room somewhere,
Yep. Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for
I've
sure.
seen Wild Country.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I just finished it a couple weeks ago. No, I went through a whole cult
You just
phase.
finished. Okay, good.
Yeah. I watched like every cult documentary out there.
What did you learn about cults?
Oh man, I want a cult so bad.
I think
I would love to have a
Don't you
cult.
think that there's something in the human psyche,
Yeah.
a desire that we have for like such a strong, close-knit community
Yes.
that it would be culty?
Yes, that's throughout American culture. It's in sports. It's in politics. It's in
Or the word culture
everything.
comes from cult.
Yes, exactly. I would love to have a cult, but mine would
okay.
be a good one, which is what they all say
But you
before
can
they turn
launch it
bad.
right here if you like.
I
mean,
would love to. The Brent Pella cult. Join the family. We'll call it the family. I think there was one of those in Australia, but it was a bad one. And I'm not going to steal your kids. I might have sex with your wife, but only if that's okay with you, which it will be okay with you after we have a 4-hour conversation where I give you a little bit of a reading and you'll walk out feeling a little loopy, but you'll be down and let me have sex with your wife. That's besides the point. That's not the reason I would start the cult. That's just a side thing. Don't get fixated on the Brent's going to have sex with your wife thing. That's not the point. The point of the cult would be to expand awareness. And I'd also have sex with wives, but to really expand awareness. What I learned about cults was, man, it is. I at first I felt a lot of a lack of empathy for the people who got caught up in different cults, like the Nixium cult.
Oh, Nexium, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely turned to a weird sex thing.
Yeah. Buddha Field. Do you know about that one? So at first I felt a real lack of empathy. I was like, what? These people are so dumb. How could you not see what was going on? You thought this dude wanted to put himself inside you, and that's like a fun way to experience God? What? But as I continued to watch, and then I did some extra research online about like the psychology of somebody who leads a cult and the psychology of somebody that can get wrapped up into a cult. And then I started feeling real pity for folks because it really didn't matter like what. Sure, there are people who are probably a bit more persuadable, right? But a lot of folks were just normal people that got wrapped up by some real bad motherfuckers, you know? And the psychology is fascinating. The psychology of people, the people in power, how they can use different techniques like neurolinguistic programming, or what's the other language one? Or is that the one? I think that's the one. Yeah.
I mean, Osho. Now he did say a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah.
But it was pretty well known that he took a lot of Valium.
Yeah. Yep.
To speak super slow, which is one of the funniest damn moments. I saw the Osho video where he's like talking about government. And someone asked him, "What do you think about government?" He's like, "Democracy is government of the people, for the people, and by the people." It's like long pauses, right? And everyone's just like, and then he's like, "But the people are retarded."
Yeah. Huge laugh. Huge laugh.
Government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
That guy's comedic timing was on point. It was slow, but it was on point. If I spoke at that cadence, I'd get 3 jokes out per show. But they would be huge hitters. Like really
he
funny.
definitely, with the Valium, his eyes had that Mowgli look, with the snake. It's like, he could do this whole thing.
Yeah.
He definitely
and
had
it was
that.
very, and like, put you in a trance.
Yeah, totally. He could put you in a
He would
trance.
hypnotize you just in listening.
Absolutely.
And that to me is very interesting. The human brain is so fucking interesting how people can be like hypnotized in everyday moments. I remember watching this video a long time ago where this guy was a hypnotist, and he would use, I guess it was NLP. I feel like there's another language thing. It might start with an E, whatever. He would use some type of...
I was going to say Mormonism?
Yep,
oh,
Mormonism.
Yeah. Just kidding.
He would use some type of speech pattern to slip the person he was talking to into a trance so that they wouldn't notice his unusual behavior. Now, what that unusual behavior was, he set up this experiment. He brought pieces of paper cut out to the same shape as a dollar bill. And they're just blank white pieces of paper. And he went into a jewelry store and he bought like 10 grand worth of jewelry with blank pieces of paper as cash, because he had gotten this person he's talking to, the store owner, into a hypnotic trance to where he was having them say like yes and true and all these positive things. And so when he handed him the blank pieces of paper, the guy took it and put it in the cash register as if it was just real money. And he walked out with a bunch of jewelry. And of course he came back and returned the jewelry. But I think it's very interesting how, I don't know if permeable is the right word, but I'm trying to come up with a smart one because I'm on the Robert Edward Grant podcast. But how permeable, persuadable the human brain is, how susceptible the human brain can be to just a little bit of persuasion,
stimulus.
just a little bit of stimulus. Yeah. And how manipulation can happen in incremental pieces that can lead to something as crazy as what happened with the Nexium thing. It's fascinating to me.
It was funny. I just took this whole group to Egypt, and I was kind of concerned. I'm like, okay, we got to make, because I only bought a whole bunch of people. Like Danica was there, and
cool.
Billy Carson, a bunch of people Vailana,
nice,
Blue, and Andre and everything. And I was like, okay, we do not in any way. I have no desire, because actually managing and running a cult is kind of a lot of work. It's not easy. It's not fun either.
No.
There's nothing fun about it.
But
I don't think.
a lot
Maybe
of sex.
maybe the sex.
A lot of weird sex stuff. Yeah.
As you get older, that becomes less important.
Yeah, I know. That's why I need it now, Robert.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. We can launch it right here.
Okay, cool.
We can finish anytime. And so basically, I went there and I was like, okay. And I did this whole launch for our Orion platform because they're all influencers. And the whole theme of the week was free your voice. Free your voice. And I had this weird experience. I went to the King's Chamber. Somehow my throat like completely got fried. And I couldn't speak all week. Literally couldn't speak all week. I was
After going into the King's Chamber?
Yeah, I was there with Shervin 333. He was on Instagram, and it was his birthday. So right before everyone else came, we went to the pyramid together that night for his birthday. And I basically arranged to have the pyramid privately for the night. And so while we were in there, I was laying in the sarcophagus. The next thing I know, I was in the sarcophagus, right? And I start coughing like mad. And he comes over, like, give me water and everything. And he's the guy who founded that company, Symbiotica. So he has all these little pouches and everything.
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh, I got something for you here, And so I ended up, feeling okay. But then I started talking and I couldn't talk. It was like my voice was fried for a whole week.
Whoa.
I literally couldn't talk.
Whoa.
It was painful to talk. So I was like, uh-oh, great. So here I am. I can't even really talk right. And I've got to be kind of on my A game with all these people and kind of play the role of a leader here, right? But that's when I decided, you know what? I'm not going to be the leader. I'll be a leader, and I'll expect everyone else also to be leaders. And so the whole trip was epic because there was no leader. And it was like this Garden of Eden moment.
That's cool.
Where everybody got to play their own role and step up. It was such a symphony of absolute perfection. And by the end of the week, and everyone was like, oh yeah, everyone's going to think we're here at a cult thing because we're doing like wild stuff in the pyramid and all that. There was no sex, but unfortunately, but basically, although there were orgasms.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, there was no sex, but there was orgasm. It was an incredible week. And at the end of the week, everyone was like, wow, this was so amazing. And everyone's like, well, if anyone thought this was a cult, then this is the kind of cult I want to be a part of.
Right. Which is usually how it starts.
Which is usually how it starts, yeah. And then someone has to arrange it and like
I know. Then you
get
need
a house
like an
and
assistant
a compound
and a booking agent. And you got to get property
right.
compound.
It's got to be a compound.
Yeah,
There's always a compound.
Always.
But the thing is that the whole idea of cult is something that actually governments, religions, universities aspire to. That's why we call it culture. And one thing I learned in business is that if you don't manage deliberately your culture, it will manage you. So seriously, it becomes this whole thing. Culture eats strategy for breakfast every time. Operating plans, it doesn't matter what it is. Anything you want to achieve, if you don't get the right culture, you can totally jack it up completely. But when I look at government, the reason why they vilify cults is because they want to be the ultimate cult.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think about it.
Yep.
Religions want to be the ultimate cult too. So it's interesting how we're going into this next stage of the world, which I'm sure we can find the comedy in it. But we're going to this next stage of the world. What is going to be the paradigm? Is it going to be overlords? Yeah, I spoke at United Nations last year, and I was like, how many of you think that the world still needs overlords? I'm, of course, speaking to a whole room of overlords.
Right.
I have my own form of comedy.
Yeah.
But so what do you think it's going to be? I mean, are we just going to all join the Brent Pella cult?
That would be the safest move. It would be the safest move to
You'd
join
have to
the
change
Brent
your
Pella
name,
cult.
I think. Because Pella is kind of close to pedo.
Right.
Pedo
so
cult,
it's got to
yeah.
change.
Pella
Can't have
cult,
that.
yeah, no. Pella
It
cult
already
is-
existed.
yeah,
I
pedo
would
cult.
type my name into the cult leader generator online and just see what it comes back with. A lot of rappers have done that and had successful careers. So I think they would give me something like, Ashashanashanashanan or something. And that could be my cult leader name.
That's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
And
if that doesn't exist, I propose we build the cult leader name generator app to help future cult leaders step into their own guru, But what do I think is going to be the next paradigm? You know, I do feel pretty confident in people's ability to overcome the kind of misleading narratives that we seem to be just getting blasted with on a daily basis. And maybe it's because I look into the news just a lot and I'm just constantly trying to be aware of what's happening and how people are talking about what's happening and what is being said is happening versus what is actually happening and why is this piece of information not in this article but it's in this one. And I'm always trying to piece together what's going on around me and in the world. And I do feel, I don't know if this is the echo chamber I'm in with my content and the people who follow me, but I get a sense that there's expansion happening and people are becoming more and more interested in expanding their awareness, in questioning. So mainstream narratives is kind of a cliche these days, but like that, there's truth to it. Like there's a whole movement in spirituality where people are rediscovering spirituality or discovering it for the first time and learning about what the flower of life means and watching sacred geometry videos. And then there's a whole movement in the health and wellness space where people are really taking advantage of the independent ways you can stay healthy and preventative care and new diets that are research backed and not based in like plant-based meats and crickets, you know. And then in the finance space, more people are investing their money into things like cryptocurrencies or resources outside of the financial banking institutions, right? And so I'm starting to just notice this increase in activity in these different spaces of society that gives me a lot of hope. It gives me a lot of hope, a lot of faith, really. It gives me a lot of faith in humanity's ability, maybe American culture first, but humanity's ability overall to overcome the kind of limiting structures that we've created within society. That's created like class disparities to the point where we have culture war and class war. That's created animosity between political parties. That's created hatred between people who have two different diets and mistrust of the big pharma system. Well, now people are relying less and less on big pharma, right? And we see this also happening in the psychedelic renaissance. People moving into using psychedelic medicines to heal or to grow and to progress their own sense of self and their own place in the world and figure out what that is more and more. And I see these things and I notice these things more and more every year than I did the year before. And it gives me a lot of fucking faith and it makes me pretty stoked. And I still get down for sure because there's a lot of bad. There just is. And there is a lot of dumb. There just is. And but the amount of good that I see, maybe it's the naive optimist in me. I really hold on to the faith that these new ways of living and these new structures that people are integrating into their lives within those containers I just shared, health and wellness, psychedelic, spirituality, are going to help everybody grow.
At the end of the day, I think the catalyst and the rationale for doing all these new ways of things, the way we've done things in the past and changing it, is that, you know, the definition of insanity is to do things the same way and expect a different result. I think we're at that point right now. It feels like we're at a precipice where we're like, you know what? I'd rather try something else and fail than to go in circles.
Yes.
And I feel that very, very strongly. And, you know, it's kind of, I can give you an example. I had an experience this week that was kind of like a big shock for me. I'll be honest. Just tell you the truth. I had one of my companies that I had founded and I took public. And it was in the pharmaceutical space. So I used to be, you know, pharma CEO, big pharma kind of guy. So a couple of my companies are still in the pharmaceutical space. And there are some amazing things that these kinds of, you know, we take a naturally occurring protein and inject it, and it does so many different things. Like it can treat cervical dystonia, spasticity, juvenile cerebral palsy, so many different things, and all these movement disorders. Well, what's been happening though in the world, and shock of shocks, And I actually think this is probably the most quantifiable, powerful evidence that I have seen yet about a real shift in human consciousness. So I'm really jazzed about this, even though the outcome was not great for me. But it's still not bad. It's just not as good as what I'd hoped. And what it is that placebos have become dramatically more effective during the last 10 to 15 years.
Really?
Dramatic. So I was just reading a Harvard, health magazine. It's kind of like it's one step below like a New England Journal of Medicine type of thing. It's a bit of a journal, and they did a study on all the clinical trials in the neurology space. So this is basically about nerves and neuroscience, and especially for pain, right? And the study was over 84 clinical trials to look at these 84 clinical trials and to see the changes that had happened to society across these clinical trials in the effectiveness of placebo. And it's dramatic. Like the placebo effect has gotten doubly effective. It's already the best drug in the world for everything.
Right.
It's already the best drug in the world for everything.
Wild.
So now it's gotten so good that it's making it very difficult for new pharmaceuticals to actually gain FDA approval because they have to show separation from placebo. That's the control study.
How much separation?
Not a lot of separation, but it has to be enough to kind of justify at a panel, in front of a panel of experts on the topic, to be able to justify the negative or deleterious impact of potential side effects, serious adverse events or side effects from the drug. So you have to be able to show dramatic separation from placebo, but placebo is getting so much better. And so I just experienced this with a clinical trial for migraine headache in this company, and the placebo was so good. The drug was as effective as it always had been, and other trials and everything else, but the placebo was so good that this particular cohort of the trial was not able to go through, right? Because we couldn't show that much separation from placebo. To the point where now these journals are starting to ask the questions like, wait a minute, maybe we should just start using placebo as our drug. And see if we could figure out a way to make placebo even more effective, which is exactly what we're just talking about in doubling the cube.
Yeah.
Changing your belief system. How do you change and expand to a larger volume and double your octave? It is exactly by first knowing that it's even possible, and then realizing that the whole thing is simply a shift in how you perceive it. So this idea of the 126 that I was just talking about also relates right back to love. Because if there's one number that relates to love, it is 126. How is it related to love? Well, in music, 1.26 would be the major third. So it would be da, 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 da. That would be unison note, major third, perfect fifth, and then the octave. So how do you get from the lower octave to the upper octave? The pathway through it is through this major third. You go da, da, and then you multiply it again, and then you would end up with another third up, and then you could complete the octave because 1.26 cubed equals 2. Doubles the octave. This is the music that we play in movies when we want people to feel love. It's literally the background music they play in movies to feel love. And they play the opposite, the minor sixth, because everything has to add to 9.
Fear?
To feel heartbreak.
Yeah.
Specifically heartbreak. Fear is the diminished fifth. But heartbreak from like romantic love, breaking up, is what they play. When it set the scene for like now a breakup in the movie.
Yeah.
This is exactly the thing. I think there's a big lesson here, which is we're like the Vitruvian Man over your shoulder. The Vitruvian Man, if you look over your right shoulder, he's standing there. Grab that little thing.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He's standing inside this box, right? Which in 2 dimensions is just this square. But in 3 dimensions, it would be a cube that he's standing inside of. Right? And a circle around that too. But basically, how does he expand? He has to first believe that he can expand. And I think one of those belief systems for me, when I start thinking about this, is, wait a minute. Is there a way for us and humanity to expand just simply by changing our belief system? Is everything we're experiencing just the calcification of a long-term belief in something that's not necessarily correct? And is that also true in terms of governance and leadership? Do we need overlords anymore? Or do we simply believe we need overlords because that's what we've experienced our whole lives? Can humanity graduate to a stage where we don't need elections anymore?
Do you think we could? Do you think practically we could?
I do.
How long,
I actually
if
think
you had
we
to put
do.
a time?
If
Oh, by
you
the way,
think
this
about-
does look exactly like me, everybody.
Yeah.
I knew I was right.
Yeah. So if you think about what it would take, right, to think like that. And also, let's look at society today. Do governments actually kill people or do they save people?
But both would be my answer.
Wars are started,
Yeah.
right? Wars are started all the time.
Yeah.
Would we have so many wars if we didn't have governments the way we have?
If we didn't,
We all tend to think, oh, everything would just go straight to lawlessness, right? It's like,
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
There would need to be probably some type of structure, unless
There
it
needs
was-
to be some sort of structure, absolutely.
Yeah.
But what could it be? And let's not think about this in terms of what has already been, but rather let's think of this in terms of what could be. And do we really need to have this manager who's in control with power and this representative who is going to basically be our advocate but is actually just corrupt as fuck? Mm-hmm. Do we really need all that? That's a real question. And I mean, I'm sure we can find comedy in it because actually politics has become total comedy, right? It's become ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even have to write very much anymore. I just kind of say and do what they do in videos. 'Cause
Yeah, I mean, talk about the
material's already there.
personification of dumb,
Yeah.
right? Let's be real. And here we have like this election coming up. And so isn't it funny that we get so focused on dividing and conquering amongst ourselves, we don't actually fix the system? Have you thought about that?
Yeah. I just don't know what the fix is. I have no idea. I think, but on an individual level, it would need to just start with what you're saying, with people first believing that change to this system we've created can happen, that there is a better way.
If placebo can be literally the world's most effective drug that is increasing its efficacy every year, then it can literally heal all sickness. And there are cohorts of people in these studies that are in placebo that are literally healed, fully resolved. Now, the trial that I basically had, we did pass on another study, which was related to secondary endpoint associated with migraines that are episodic migraines. And that's the bigger market and everything. And that's what we were already going to go after that.
Yeah.
But what it made me really think through was, wait a minute, can I simply increase to go beyond an age of sickness by changing my belief system from what I thought was the limitation before? Could I do the same thing with what was seemingly a very corrupt system by changing my belief system of what was before and what the constraints are? Is that what a shaman or a guru actually is just someone who says, I'm going to break out of these patterns of belief and I will be self-sovereign now? And to me, it's funny because, 20 years ago, I would have laughed at all this. I would have said, are you joking me? We can't go without this. And then you start thinking about, well, wait a minute, with what just happened with the pandemic, it wasn't very funny, right? If you think about it.
Yeah.
Right. And everyone was vilified for talking about the pandemic and everything and the jab and all that jazz. But now we look at it, it's like, what a nightmare. What a nightmare. And you have to start asking yourself the question, was this a self-inflicted, pandemic on humanity from our own governments?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do we need overlords anymore? It's a deeper, more solemn question to a comedian, but I think it can be done. I don't know how to get there exactly, but I'm willing to give it a shot.
I don't think we need overlords. I think we need aliens. I think we need more of them, and I think they need to show up ASAP.
So you think that the answer is that
I think part of the answer
The aliens
is
are going to show, and like at the end of this year,
yeah.
and they're going to say, "Yo, time
Chill
for a
out.
set change."
Yeah. Yeah. Chill the
out.
fuck out.
Well, okay, so we're having a conversation with an alien. What would the alien say?
Man, I don't know.
By the way, they definitely have a sense of humor.
Oh, for sure. Oh my God. We're the funniest thing they've ever seen. We are their friends. TV show.
No,
I'm Chandler Bray.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
What would they say? Man, I don't know. But I also question if they even would say anything. And I question if they even would really show up in that way, because maybe their presence here is much more of a what's it called? They're just here to watch, not get
Observers.
involved. Yeah, maybe they're just observers.
The prime directive.
Yeah. Because then what that post was that I told you about earlier was toward the end he talked about motive, and again, let's just pretend that everything this guy wrote in that Reddit post was absolutely true, right? Let's just pretend for fun. At the end, he talked a bit about what their objective could have been, and it was very theoretical, but he said he had spoken with somebody else who had operated on like their brain and the machinery in a different department that he wasn't supposed to talk to, and they said their main objective was to help humanity progress to the point where humanity could join them in achieving apotheosis. Do you know apotheosis?
It's related to death.
It's roughly
like an evolution.
I should have looked this up earlier. It's I remember the translation being something along the lines of the culmination of all things into one, right? Which is kind of like what we came from, the Big Bang. You know, what was before the Big Bang? Probably a moment of the singularity, right? And so if their main objective is to achieve apotheosis, that's
So the
what
one
they're here to
divides
do.
itself into the many simply for the joy of becoming one again.
Yes. Yeah. And so right now we're many. And maybe their presence would help us progress a little bit faster into becoming the one. Although that's territory where I don't really know what the fuck I'm talking about. But it's super
But
interesting.
conversation with an alien. I think what they would say, and I probably have a little different, maybe
Well, you've heard
expanded
them
perspective.
say.
I've actually spoken with them. They do laugh. They have a funny sense of humor. The ones that I've talked to are very good in math. They laugh at our level of remedial math. And the way we classify intelligence, they totally laugh about.
Yeah.
And they believe that, and they're very spiritual, they believe that the only pathway to higher knowledge is through the door of spirituality. That the whole system is set up in duality such that the more you study within physics, you'll only end up finding more and more dead ends. You have to come at it through music, or come at it through art, or come at it through math, or come at it through other natural sciences. You can't find solutions within their own discipline. You have to take principles from others, and the whole system is set up so that it forces you to become more polymathic. They would also say that we're going through a transition, and that the governance models and everything were all artifacts, the ones that we've been experiencing for the last 2,000 years. We think that's the entire paradigm. They're all artifacts of the last age of Pisces.
Right.
It's just tied to the zodiac. And they would say that everything that we think of right now as being arbiters of judgment are all going to get disintegrated.
Oh.
And that there will be a big reset. Not the kind that the WTF wants.
Yeah.
Did I say WTF?
WEF?
Yeah. But I think it's kind of WTF.
That was a Freudian slip.
Yeah, exactly. And, it was a Klaus Schwabian slip.
Klaus Schwabian slip.
Yeah, that was a Schwabian
Hilarious.
slip. Yeah. But basically, I think that's what they would say. I think they would literally say that it's time for humanity to decide what humanity wants for itself on an individual and collective basis. I think it'd be an interesting conversation, and I think it's already predestined, so it's going to come, whether we like it or not. Everything is already set.
So if everything is already set, so what is your oh man, how much time do we have?
We got a few more minutes.
What is your reflection on the conversation of determinism versus free will?
So I believe that we are dimensionally limited avatars from a higher self, the one, who divides itself into the many because it realized the only way it can learn the truth is by capturing the perspectives of every possible different perception, angle, degree of perception. And so it keeps separating out more and more and more so it can perceive itself through our eyes. So it's not only that the one divides itself into the many for the joy of becoming one again, it's the one divides itself into the many for the joy of perceiving itself through our unique eyes of conditioning bias, and then eventually becoming one again. So in that context, everything was chosen by you. It's not you in your conscious mind sense, it's you in your higher self. So what we call destiny is really just the free will of the higher self. And you are the higher self as well. You've just been separated from it because it would never make sense to be playing a game in a simulation where you were omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. We play poker, it would be no fun. I'd be like, okay, I know the hands you're being dealt. I know how you're going to respond to that hand. No, that's not fun. What you would do is you would dimensionally limit yourself in an avatar and still be able to, as a collective, mine all of that data and information in order to increase wisdom and empathy. And they realize that the only real objective truth that underlies all of it is the love that connects all of it. Love is the metaphysical gravity. That's why we look in outer space. It's the blackness of space. It's the love we don't understand. And I think that's what we're here for. I really believe that the one does divide itself in the many so it can perceive itself through our eyes. And as it does, it captures more and more empathy. Because the only thing that's real in this matrix of illusion is what we feel. It's all the feelings. Every feeling that you've ever repressed and never actually allowed yourself to feel, you will have to go back and touch and feel. Every word that you never said because you didn't want to hurt someone's feelings and you didn't want to hurt yours or even face the confrontation of it all, you'll have to go back and say. And this is the purpose of us being here. I think that's really what it's about, so that the one can become more empathic. That's a deep, deep concept.
Yeah.
But I think there's good basis for it. And it makes sense to be like a giant AI.
Yeah.
Learning how to love. Maybe that's the whole reason for the universe. Learn how to love and how to be loved.
Just make sure to have a good time as much as you can,
straight.
too.
Have fun with it.
You gotta have fun.
This whole world should be fun.
It's a deep, deep, crazy deep, weighted, profound thought process that you just laid out. And in between the moments of trying to figure it out, gotta have fun.
Absolutely.
And you gotta laugh your way through it.
You gotta laugh your way through it.
Because the world is fucking madness. And there are crazy experiences just waiting to be had. And I don't think anybody would get to the end of their life having traversed down a spiritual path for 80 years and be like, man, I'm so glad I never ate a cookie. You know? Like have little moments of fun in between. Eat the cookie.
Yeah.
Eat the cookie.
Eat the cookie.
Eat the cookie.
Yeah. Definitely.
And then go back to grappling with your place in the world in terms of your higher self.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things psychedelics do as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Psychedelics like take the stick out of your ass.
Yes. And that, okay. So that brings me back to the etymology of the word, right? To manifest, a manifestation of the mind.
Yes.
So how I apply that to comedy is when you, for me, and then maybe this will relate for other folks too. When I consume comedy, when I watch a movie, when I see stand-up comedy live, when I watch a comedy video, in my mind, as I'm consuming, I'm experiencing a different world, a different dimension.
Yeah.
And so as a performer and a creator, it's my goal to have you, the viewer, enter a different world, a different dimensional plane and leave everything behind as you're experiencing what I'm producing.
Like when you go to a
for
really good movie or something.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why movies, to me, are inherently psychedelic because your mind is now manifesting a different reality and you're living in that reality. And so when I'm on stage, especially, my goal is for everybody in the audience to have a psychedelic-like experience. And also I did that in my comedy special that just released, Conscious Bro, now on YouTube. And in that special, I did a lot of visual effects, and there's a whole a thematic element to it that was intended to give people kind of a psychedelic-like experience, just very small. Nobody's going to get high, obviously. You're not going to feel anything or close your eyes and be on another planet. But the goal for me in comedy is to create psychedelic-like experiences for a viewer or for a consumer of whatever the content is that I put out. So that's, yeah, and that's... hopefully giving people the ability to step out of that experience a bit lighter and go back into whatever they were doing with a bit more levity, and go back into their thought processes on different things, whether it's politics, spirituality, health and wellness, whatever, with just a bit lighter after experiencing what I put out. That's my goal, is for anybody who experiences my work, is to go back into their life with like a little bit more of the element of the court jester now that they had this borderline psychedelic experience because I manifested from my mind to theirs. So yeah, that is the end goal for me when it relates to when I think about psychedelics in comedy, is to allow people to experience my work and then go back into their life just a bit lighter and not maybe just don't take things as seriously anymore because you remember what Brent did with the silly thing when he's talking about his dick and da-da-da-da-da, or whatever the joke is.
Micropenis.
Micropenis, thank you. Yeah. It's this big.
Well, that's the thing.
This is to scale.
They never found Vitruvian Man. They never found Osiris's penis.
That's right.
That was the 1/14 that was missing.
Little did they know it walked into this office here today.
Wow. See.
Guys, welcome back to the Robert Edward Grant podcast. That is the fourth Brent Pella penis reference of the day, and it is 211. 2 + 1 + 1 = 4. 4 + 2 + 1 + 1 = 8. 8 - 1 is 7. + 2 = 9. 9 - 9 is 0. To the second power is 1.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, I think you're exactly right. I think actually lightening up is exactly the prescription that we need.
Well, when you're lighter, it allows you to maybe expand your awareness more. You know,
100%.
So that's also tied into everything I just laid out. Is what if folks want to expand awareness, then don't carry around so much weight and allow for space in your thought process. Allow for you break that habitual thinking with creativity. And so expanding awareness, and as we talk about evolving consciousness and all these things, just going through it.
Lighten up, man.
With lightness.
Yeah, because
in your energy
enjoy the
field
game.
Will allow you to expand more. Yeah.
Fall in love with the game.
Yeah.
It's not, don't hate the player, hate the game. It's love the player, love the game.
Yeah.
That's what this actually is, and have a good time with it. What was your Halloween costume last year?
Last year, oh man, I don't know if I went out last year because I was exhausted from a tour, but I was going to be What's Will Ferrell's character name in Zoolander? Mustafa. Mugatu. Mustafa is the Lion King.
Mugatu.
Yeah, I was Mugatu. And I think the year before I was Robin Hood, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Robin Hood. Okay, that tells you could probably stitch your life together as a tapestry from your Halloween costumes.
I was Robin Hood for 5 years in a row when I was a little kid. And then I was Scream for 3 years in a row. So I don't know what that says about my broken brain, but I'm sure there are a lot of energy healers listening to this episode that are Gonna pick that apart and send me some DMs. I'd love to hear them. I'd love to know. Please tell me what's going on.
Slide
there.
into your DMs.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Thank you so much, Brent. It's been such a pleasure to be here with you, and thank you for what you're doing to uplift people's spirits. And you could definitely do a whole show. Maybe that should end up on Netflix or something and call it Lighten Up, Bro.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. That's the goal. That's the goal, is to just help people laugh through the absurdity of life. Because one day these 3D bodies are not going to be here anymore. And in the finite amount of time we have them, let's just try to have a good time.
So,
much as we
there's kind of
possibly
one
can.
closing joke. Mm-hmm. One thing that the extraterrestrials did tell me, mine were Arcturians, by the way, is that when you die, all you want is to come back here.
I can imagine.
Because it's the most incredible game.
It's cool.
It's cool.
It's a fun time.
So maybe we just have to change our perception of it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
How
you,
do
Robert.
people find you and follow
Yeah.
your work and everything?
So it's at Brent Pella on everything. New videos almost every day on Instagram, and comedy special is called Conscious Bro. It's out now on YouTube. It's kind of a mix of spirituality and broness, and tells a bit of the story of my background. And it's a good time. That's free on YouTube, and BrentPella.com has tour dates and everything else.
Awesome.
So appreciate you, man. Otherwise, I'll see you on the 11th dimension when you eat an edible next time. I'll be there.
Thank you. And if you want to find out more about my work as well, go to robertedwardgrant.com. You can find out my books, my trips to Egypt, and we're going on another trip outside the soon to be announced of Egypt. And I'm very, very excited about what's happening in the world right now. And I actually do think it's all about lightening up a bit.
Yes.
Love you all. We'll see you next week on Think Tank.